Makeup!
I think I'm good. Hey, welcome back. I'm looking for a nice little project to give my wife Ann for her birthday. The birthday's gonna be in 4 or 5 days. So I need a quick little project that looks very, very affectionate and loving and caring. Something warm, like roses, but roses die. Candy, that just puts on the pounds. How about a nice little mirror? How about a little hand mirror, handcrafted out of wood, that you can make probably in about 3 or 4 days? I think I'm gonna go with this. I like this idea. Now, if you look at this one, obviously someone took care in laminating different types of wood to make up the entire project. The mirror's on the front, and on the back side, you have a nice selection of different woods. You have some ash here, you have some walnut, some oak, a piece of cherry, another piece of ash. So you have a nice array of all different woods. Now, as I said with anything that you can make this as complicated or as easy as you'd like. I don't want to spend a lot of time laminating it. I do like the different types of wood. I like that effect. But what I want to do is just make something that's kind of simple, something that kind of speaks like the warm thoughts that I want to convey. And with that, I always want to select the type of wood that I really like that makes it special. Now, in our shop, we have pine. Pine is okay, but pine is a lightweight wood. It's easy to stain, but it's easily dented. You guys know about poplar. If I was going to make this out of poplar, it might have a green or a grayish or a black tinge to it. But the story with poplar is it's a great paint grade material, not a super hard wood. Then I get into the lighter colors, like a maple, which is super hard, really finishes well. That's one thought that I have in mind. Or I can make this out of ash. And ash is this material right over here. And ash is the whiter wood that kind of has the same grain as oak, but the color of maple. If I wanted to get into the darker woods, like walnut. Walnut is very warm. It's one of those woods that you look at and you go, wow, that really looks cool. But I don't think that she likes the darker woods, super dark. I always like, whenever I make my wife something, always like to make it out of cherry. Cherry to me is very warm. It's very hardy. It's one of those woods when you give it to somebody and you see any kind of contrast, like a piece of mirror on the piece of wood, it's a great contrast because cherry will eventually darken with time. I can also make it out of oak. And the advantage of making it out of oak is I could stain it. So I actually have 2 choices, and maybe you guys can help me here with my choices. If I was gonna make it out of oak, I could use this piece here. If I wanted to make it out of cherry, I found a piece of wood that's pretty close to being the size that I want it to be, or I can make it out of cherry. So one of my questions here for you today is, I really like the oak. I think the oak would look super great. I like the grain in it. I think it would look tremendous. I also like the color of the cherry. So which one do you think I would pick? If I had to choose to lay out my pattern or my template on this piece of oak, should I choose the oak or the cherry? Well, if you know me, you know there's a reason why I'm asking these questions. And the reason is simple. I definitely want to choose this piece of cherry. Well, I said I liked cherry before, but I also said I liked oak. Why wouldn't I choose this as my wood? That's my question. Why wouldn't I choose the oak as my material to lay out for my hand mirror? Well, if we learned anything from woodshop, we learned about thickness, width, and length, and all of that stuff has to do with grain. So when I look at the grain of this board, the huge thing that you notice is, well, I can't get a mirror this way, but I can easily get it this way. What's the problem with this? The grain is always weakest going along it. So if I were to take this, lay this template out or this pattern out here, cut this out, this point right here where I have the least amount of wood becomes the easiest wood or the easiest part that I could break. If I look at this piece of cherry, cherry has the grain running in the opposite direction. So you notice this will be strong all the way along because the pattern, the majority of the pattern is going along the grain. So if I wanted to, I could see me laying this out, drawing it out, cutting it out, machining it, routing it, finishing it, sanding it, and then bring it home to Ann, and something like this happens. Honey, what happened to my birthday gift? Well, now guess what? You have two hand mirrors. Well, you have the mirror on one side, you got the handle on the other side. So that's one of the main reasons when we look at materials, you have to look at the grain. Well, I guess that eliminates my oak, so I guess I'm making that out of this piece of cherry. What I really liked when I was going through the wood pile, this piece of cherry doesn't have a whole lot of waste to it. I have plenty of pieces that are 8 inches wide that I can put this in the middle, and God only knows why people do that. If I said to you, lay out this pattern on this piece of wood, most people would put it right here in the middle. And I always say, why? I don't get it. Why don't you put it right on the end so we waste less material? That's exactly what I'm going to do. If I look at this board, there's some things that I want to avoid on this. Normally, you guys know me, you know I love knots. But the thing that I don't like about this knot, it's not a solid, tight knot. It actually hurts. There's a splintered edge over here. So I wouldn't put it that way. You say to me, I could put it this way. I could, but there's some chips along this grain which I didn't care for. And if you look at the backside actually looks cooler than the front side. But I just want to be on the safe side and go with this. Let's take a look at this grain. This grain is in good shape over here, really cool back here. I think that's the part that I want to see the most. So here is what I did, and this is question number 2. Anytime I make something, and I make a lot of them, if I want to serve myself well and save myself some time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a pattern or a template. A template is a pattern, and that's your question. What is a template? Or how about what is a pattern? A pattern is a template. I cut this out and I was really careful and I made it out of a piece of 1/4 inch plywood. So I can take this, move this around pretty easily. The thing that I don't want to do is break this because I'd have to make another template. But I don't want to make it out of a solid piece. I think it's lighter and easier to work with. Also, I want to mark out that center hole when I'm drawing this out. So what I want to understand is that if I am a right-handed person, check this out. If I'm a right-handed person and I comb my hair, if I had hair, when I used to have hair, I used to comb it with my right hand. Well, if I'm looking at this hand mirror and I hold my comb with my right hand because I'm a righty, I don't want to have the mirror held this way. I don't want the face of the mirror on this side. I actually want it turned around because now this is more comfortable in my hand. So understand what side we don't have to worry about a whole lot because the mirror's going there, and what side you want to worry about because you're going to see the grain on that back side. So if I look at this, I think I already told you that I really like the grain on this side, and this side's just okay. So if I do that, and I'm making it for a right-handed person, Ann's right-handed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my template, I'm going to lay it on my board just like that, and I'm going to trace this out. So you want to start the process? Let's see how quick I can knock this thing off because I don't have a lot of time before her birthday. Let me put my glass on so I can, oh, there you are. I can see what you guys are doing. Hey, stop. Hey, get away. Knock that off. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my template, I lay it on my board, and it just barely makes the edge, just barely makes the edge. I'm going to move this up close to the end as well. And when I look at this, this is the bad side of the pattern. I want to make sure this is exactly centered, and the good side is on the other side. So let me take out my pencil. And what I'm going to do, because as many of you know, he is half blind. That's my better half is blind. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trace this out super dark. It's another reason why, believe it or not, he stopped using walnut a lot, because if I take a pencil and put on a piece of walnut, I really can't see it that well. So here is my template traced out. And here's another huge thing that I'm going to do right now. I have a point, and that point is going to kind of end up being really, really important. I'm going to put a dot at that point right there. So I put my dot and I laid my template out and I made the shape of this pattern myself. It wasn't a big deal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out. My question to you is, should I joint this board first before I cut it out? Or is this a workable size? Well, think about this. Do you see anything on here that's square? There's nothing on this that's square. I don't have to go through the normal process of cutting a board to a workable length, joining an edge, ripping it to width, squaring an end, cutting to length, because there's nothing here that's square. So I can take this, and I don't think this is workable. I don't want to work this on the bandsaw like this if I'm going to cut out this shape. I'm going to take this over to my chop saw. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off so I can work with this area, and then take it to the bandsaw and cut the pattern out and start the whole process going. You want to follow me to the old chop saw? Miter saw? Come on. Hopefully I left a square back here, and I did. And I know what many of you guys are saying right now. Hey, why don't you get your tape measure now? I really don't have anything to measure on this project. What I do want to do is be pretty accurate. I don't want to waste a lot of material. I'm butting my combination square up against this edge, and these are both machined edges. So I'm just going to draw a line here to make sure that I don't cut my good piece short. What I'm going to do is I'll cut this on the miter saw. Butt that around. Now, if I just had a rough cut edge here, it really wouldn't matter. Because in this case, I don't need it to be square. As I showed you, there's nothing that's square on this whole entire project. So I'm going to take my board, butt it up against here, bring my chop saw down again, cut to the right side of that line. Left hand all the way to the left, sleeves are rolled up, safety glasses on, nobody is around. Hey, Mr. Shipko, I'm going to use the chop saw. Okay, Jimmy. Oh, he says, okay, Jimmy. Okay, so now I'm ready to cut. You guys well know we want to leave that line. I left the line, and that's not a big deal. The next thing that I could do is walk over to my friend, the old bandsaw, and I could actually start cutting this pattern out. Wow, I'm almost done. One cut, and this is almost finished. No, I don't think so. It doesn't work that way. We're going to go to the bandsaw. Remember, this is the side I'm going to see on the back side. So I put my point here, and I'm just going to write that the mirror is going to go here. Hold it with my left, that's correct. Everything works out. Let's go to the bandsaw. This bandsaw is very similar to what we talk about with the miter saw or the chop saw. I never want to cut on the line. I always want to cut to the line. That is a huge, important concept. As a matter of fact, it was asked probably in an earlier video. When I'm making this cut, do I cut on the line? The issue there is when I cut on the line, I lose the line and I have nothing that I could sand to. That line is going to serve as a guide when I work on my spindle sander and my disc sander to sand to the exact shape and size. So I want to make sure that I don't cut that line off. So I have to be super careful. You know what that means? 2 pair of glasses. When I do this, I'm also going to plot my strategy. I'm going to tell you guys something. Knowing this because I've had experience before, I can make this cut. If I started cutting here, I could cut, and go straight on out. And I wouldn't have a problem with that. That's not a very difficult cut. It's not a tight radius. Where's my problem on this project? You got it. Cameraman goes right to that point. Because if I tried to cut, and tried to make this cut, I would have an issue. I would see that blade snap, I'm sure, because it would be too much stress to cut that radius. So what I'm going to do is we'll give you a question that's coming up on how we deal with the tight radius on the bandsaw after I can hopefully make my successful cuts. Let me clear off my glasses. Let me give this a shot. Whenever I work on the bandsaw, as you guys know, I'm never going to put my fingers directly in front of that blade because that is super dangerous. So what I want to do is I always stagger my hands I'm going to put one hand on this side, one hand on that side as I start to pick up the saw. So now I'm into the wood, and you can see that. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go as slow as I can possibly go. I'm doing two things. I am slowly pushing it in, and I'm turning it, turning it, turning it. Let's see if I can't do this. Turning it, 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 turning it. I can see that it could possibly go out there. I let it go out. Who cares? Turning it, turning it, turning it. I lose the edge. So now I'm going to pick the edge up back here. Oh, let's see if I can pick it up and leave the line. There we go. And I'm going to continue my cut. Turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it. Pushing it in, turning it, 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 turning it. If you notice, I stray off this line a bit. Sometimes there's a little bit more line like over here. Sometimes there's less line over here. But the important thing is I can still see a shadow of the pencil line wherever I'm cutting. Pretty straight cut here. Pretty straight cut. I'll begin my turning process. Got a little close to the line there. Turning it, turning it. Now I'm not pushing it in as hard, but I'm turning it a little bit more. Turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it. Turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it. Turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it. Turning it, turning it. Turning it, turning it, turning it. Right about here, I'm going to let this die out. I'm going to pull it out from here. And if you take a look at this, this is where I was saying, when I caught on there, I still have a hair of a pencil line. Over here, a little bit more, quite a bit here. I can still see the line, still see the line, still see the line. Look at how close it became. Now, when you guys do this, you are not going to be this accurate if I pick up a piece of wood for the first time, come over to the bandsaw and start slicing away. It's one of those things where experience really is the best teacher. So if I were making this and I wanted to use a piece of cherry, my good piece, you know what I'd probably do? I'd probably pick up a scrap piece of poplar, or maybe that broken piece of, bless you, cameraman, or maybe that piece of oak that broke, and I'd use that as a pattern. Now I'm going to cut as I go here, and we'll see how different it is. My scrap wood I just want to take and put out of the way. And let's see if we can be as accurate on this side as we were on the other side. The other side's pretty good. I've done better. This blade appears to be just a little dull. Pushing it in, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it. You have to push and turn at the same time. If you push in too fast, you'll miss your curve. If you turn it too much, you'll go past your line. So that's the important one. Let me pick this up. I'm not going to grab that piece of scrap wood, right? He's no fool. Let's see if I can pick up the blade, which I did. As I continue. Pushing it in, pushing it in, pushing it in, pushing it in. Turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it. Whoa, boy. Uh-oh, I got an issue there. You see that? It looks like I'm almost past the line. You know what I want to do? I want to pull this out. But the problem, and I'm going to shut the saw off, the problem with this blade is it's running on a track. The track is the bandsaw itself. There's two wheels, a top wheel and a bottom wheel. If you take a look, this is one continuous blade. So if I were to take this as I went here, well, kind of purposely, and I tried to pull this out, you notice that this will come right off of the track. I don't want to do that. So anytime anybody starts to make a cut like I did, and I tried to do this to show you, how would I, if I got to the point where it looks like I'm going to make a mistake and I don't want to make the mistake, how do I do it? Here's what I would do. So my board is positioned, if you notice right over here, I started to look like I was going to go past the line. The saw blade was spinning. I don't want to go past the line. If I move it back out, you'll notice I can pull the blade off the track. Here's what I want to do. Shut it off. I'm going to take out a pencil. Before, I touched that blade, which I don't usually do, but I wanted to show you where the blade was and how easily it came off the track. I'm going to take my pencil, put my pencil here, and I can pull it out, and that way the saw blade will stay on the track and it won't go past my line. Everybody see that? So that's an easy way to do it if I get really close, like right over there. If I get really close and I don't want to go past the line, I'm just being conservative here. Let me finish this cut up. So I pulled it out, I started up, and it's still in that same track. Now I'm going to be normal and sort of avoid that area. Turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it, turning it. That piece is in my way. Now I have an issue. Here's the issue. I don't think I can make that cut because it's too tight a radius. So watch what I'm going to do here, kids. I'm going to take this, and all I'm going to do is just spin it out. I'm going to spin it out to get away from that area. And if I want, I can pick this up, and I can work on the handle. Let's see if we can't work on the handle. That handle radius is even a tight cut. How do I cut this? What you do is look around the shop, see who's the best student. You get them over here and you say, hey, can you finish this up for me? No, I don't think so. What we're going to do is we're going to make a series of easy cuts, straight in and straight out. This is your question, kids. A tight radius, requires relief cuts. So the question on this video, how do I make a tight radius on the bandsaw without snapping the blade? I'm going to make relief cuts. If you look at this, it's easy to move the blade straight in and straight out. It's more difficult when I did it over here when I was cutting in a regular shape. So what I want to do is go straight in, straight out, straight in, straight out, straight in, straight out, straight in, straight out. Then when I take the bandsaw and pick this area up, every time I hit a straight in cut, this part breaks off and allows the bandsaw blade to turn and follow that pattern. So let me make my relief cuts, which are the easiest thing to do. I do want to make sure that when I do my relief cuts, that I don't go past my pattern line. People will say to me, what's the best way to attack this? From here or from here? I always like to kind of go in from this side. So I'll try and pick this up. As I make my cut, you can see the pieces breaking off. Oops, goodbye. Turning it. Turning it, 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 turning it. Sometimes those little pieces might get caught up in your throat plate. there's my shape. Is it great? No, that's why God invented the spindle sander and the disc sander we're going to go to next. You have scrap pieces like that? You have a bandsaw blade spinning? I go in and grab it? I don't think so. I don't want to be nicknamed 9.5. So what I'm going to do is wait till that comes to a complete stop. And if it really bothers me, I take my pieces, throw them out. I take my pieces, I put them in my scrap box. Stop, stop. Where are we headed to next? Next adventure, the sanders. Spindle sander, disc sander. And I think you guys have had experience on both. But what we'll do is we'll sand this up, we'll make it look really good. And the next thing we might do is drill press it, route it. We got some other things to do, but that's basically my mirror. If I look at this side looks okay. If I look at that side, bam, that grain really pops on that side. I'm really happy with this. When you work on the bandsaw, it's always slow and even. Take your time. Make sure you're more accurate than anything. Speed never counts on the bandsaw. I'll see you next time when we start to sand this up. Have a good one.